I'm thrilled today that we are going to hear from Daniel Stoekl of ben-Ezra. Daniel is so many things. I guess most recently, I spent a lot of time working on a book about digital humanities and Jewish studies called Jewish Studies in the Digital Age that was published open access through DeGroote, and I will, of course, put that link in the chat. But let me give you some more formal information. Daniel Stoekl of ben-Ezra is the chair of the Hebrew and Aramaic language, literature, epigraphy, and paleography at the EPHE, PSL in France, and a member of the AOROC laboratory. His research focuses on the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient rabbinic literature, as well as digital and computational humanities. His print publications abound, and I'm actually going to put most of them in the chat. I'll cite the most recent one, aside from the 2022 publication that I just mentioned. He also published Diversity and Rabbinization with G. McDowell and R. Nawald in 2019, and Scriptures, Sacred Traditions, and Strategies of Religious Subversion with M. Blidstein and S. Ruser in 2018. I'm going to copy the rest of them into the chat because most of them have links as well and can be accessible elsewhere. Daniel is also the speaker for the EAJS Digital Forum and is just doing so much in the digital world, in the Jewish studies world. And we're really thrilled to have him here today to talk about a very exciting new project to provide optical character recognition to Hebrew manuscripts as part of a massive grant in partnership with the National Library of Israel and many other institutions. So Daniel, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Many thanks, Michelle. Many thanks for the invitation. Many thanks to everybody who's here. And I hope to learn a lot from you because you're much more expert in a lot about what I'm going to speak than I am. So I'm all ears. Let me share my screen. So I'm going to talk about a project called Migrations of Textual and Scribal Traditions via large-scale computational analysis of medieval manuscripts in Hebrew script. I'm one of 4 PIs. The others may be very well known to you. Judith Schlanger from the PHE, like I am, and Oxford University. From Nachum Dershowitz, well known from the Geniza project's involvement in earlier years, and many other computational studies from Tel Aviv University, and Avi Schmidtman from the Bar-Ilan University and Dicta, plus as secondary beneficiaries, as it's called, the National Library of Israel and Haifa University. It's a European project. And what we want to do is to follow the world and way of the astronomers who are able to compare galaxies and groups of galaxies in their 3D models, but always are able to go back to the single data point, a star or even a planet. We think that the humanities are now ripe to come to a similar undertaking, to go from clusters of manuscripts for centuries or for certain regions, always back to the single letter by keeping together the pictorial and the textual data. A lot of it will be based on AI coming to manuscripts. And obviously, a lot of it depends on the world's collections, both of fragments on the right side and lots of predecessors' work that has been undertaken, for example, in the Friedberg-Geniza project, and then also accumulated now in the digital collection at KTIV of some manuscripts in your collection, I assume, are there as well. A lot, I see in Michelle's face. Now, I'll skip this, which is really very basic for you, so that it's very clear to you that the script a manuscript has a biography, it's copied from others, and is influenced. It's a forelog of two others. It has this time scale. They travel and they are dismantled and dismembered and put together again. And you have readers who add comments and corrections and ownership and censorship. And we can add many, 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 many features. And we want to combine all of them. So I already briefly mentioned the names of the people. We're going to build a team of probably around 50 people altogether that will be directly involved in the project, and hopefully we'll be able to engage with a large group of other people around this inner circle. And so the basic stats, just to give you an idea about what we're talking, we received a 10 million grant for these 4+2 teams. The project will actually start in about half a year in October and run for 6 years. And we committed to transcribe and analyze at least 30,000 manuscripts and fragments. So maybe something like 10, but maybe also 15 million images, maybe something like 2 billion words, maybe also 4 billion words, I don't know yet. And that don't let us start to talk about the number of letters, obviously. So we want, and I'll write from the start. So the data will be made available freely and openly. Also, at least once during the run of the project, on the repository, whatever we are allowed to put there, and according to the agreements of the National Library with the different partner libraries. So we will put there our transcriptions and textual analysis metadata on Zenodo, which is the big repository of the CERN in Geneva, where a lot of data is deposited from the natural sciences, but in the meantime also from the humanities. And it will be made available via interfaces that will be transferred to the curatorium of the NLI. So we want to transcribe the main text, at least, of these manuscripts at an error ratio that should be less than 5% for most of the items. We want to analyze the layout, meaning the rows, the regions, the provenance in time and space, and the classification and style. So there's a very important paleographical aspect to this. And then comes in natural language processing. So especially the Bailan team with Avi Schmidman will work on morphological annotation, which is complex for noisy transcriptions, as well as an intertextuality graph. This will be made accessible via interfaces, and one of them will be an interactive atlas, where one will have not only an atlas, but also a timescale for accessing the textual and the scribal traditions, which will be programmed by Haifa University. There will be a paleographical album, which is partially already existing, and Judith Schlanger's Oxford website I'll present briefly in a second. We hope to be able to engage and establish a new list of newly discovered texts. And obviously, as in all of these projects, lots and lots of monographs and proceeding volumes, which will deal with the case studies. So there's, on the one hand, we'll produce a lot of data, and on the other hand, we'll come with case studies that will investigate and analyze or begin the analysis of this very large data. We'll provide a lot of new algorithms, and here's just a brief list, a lot of them coming especially from Nachum Dershowitz's team in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv. So in addition to improving layout segmentation and text recognition, post-OCR correction, we want to work on reading order detection, which is obviously crucial because reading order is different if you're talking about a single text manuscript or a Targum or text with the commentaries around. We want to work on intertextuality, which is not easy when the texts are noisy, and much more difficult if we are talking about Aramaic, Judeo-Arabic, and Hebrew. So cross or interlingual intertextuality. And obviously code switching, meaning to be able to teach the computer to recognize when text switches from, let's say, Hebrew to Aramaic, and then to Judeo-Arabic, back into Hebrew. Now, our primary corpus will be the preprint manuscripts, which is not always the same. So in Yemen, we'll work a little longer than in Europe. We'll focus on, we will only deal with the literary corpus, not with the documentary corpus. And we'll work first from the low-hanging fruits, which are the texts that are usually better known, also better preserved. So the biblical text, the liturgical text, and exegetical text, both of the Bible and the Mishnah corpus, and the different layers that are superposed upon this in the literature. And then let's see, it depends a little bit how well our algorithms work, how far we can go, and what other things we will be able to cover. Now, we are working with eScriptorium, which is the infrastructure we have built in Paris, and which is open source, which you can use, install freely. We have published first models. This is our general models that I just threw on a manuscript. And you can see the transcription, which includes obviously mistakes, but it is already usable. And we will work from the simple to the complex, meaning, first of all, with regard to preservation. So we'll start with the nice full manuscripts and go to the less well-preserved manuscripts and fragments, like the Geniza fragment on the right hand, and then compared to the Bodleian manuscript on the left hand. The right hand is obviously more difficult to handle with. The second complexity is layout. So empty pages are obviously very easy to deal with, but they have to be recognized. Single column manuscript, Manhattan layouts, single column, even double column or triple column with straight lines, we can also deal with them very well. While the layouts on the right side, either with interlinear commentary or translations, or with text that changes the layout from single column to multi-column, or that is more complex to be dealt with, and we'll need a bit of time to develop the ground truth and the technology so that there will be as little as possible mistakes. So we are able to deal with very complex layout, as this image here shows from a project with Marina Rusto from Princeton, where we deal with documentary text. So by all means, we are already able to deal with very complex material, but the procedure, nevertheless, will first be to focus on the low-hanging fruits and then increase difficulty. And obviously, we'll also use a lot what is called automatic text alignment, meaning you have a rough OCR of a text, and that Bible, Mishnah, Talmud, whatever. Talmud, we will be able to get the data from the Freeburg project, so that will be quite easy. But for other texts, this is not the case. So let me show a slide in a second, because that's where the collaborations, especially with Bar-Ilan and Tel Aviv and Haifa, come into place. So the NLP part. The team from around Avi Schmidtman has used a technology that is called BERT, that you might have heard of that has been used a lot for English and French and other languages, and they have trained the first Hebrew word model that is able to deal with rabbinic texts, so not only with modern Hebrew. And this comes into place when you want to disambiguate, for example, something as simple as ein mem, whether it says nation or with, which is obviously crucial if you want to understand the text. And these are very frequent words. The one on the right, obviously much more frequent than on the left. So if one takes all the occurrences of ein mem in some body of literature, you end up with a cloud like this. And if you are using the technology that Avi's team has been able to use, especially for rabbinic Hebrew, then you can cluster these according to the context and come up with solutions that, if you compare the clusters that the computer arrives with, they're pretty close to what a human being would arrive at, so that am and aim become two distinct entities. And this is obviously also absolutely crucial for the resolution of abbreviations or the disambiguation of acronyms. So for example, Reish Lamed, which could mean Reish Lakish or Rahman al-Itzlan or Wotze Lomar, and you do not want to mix them up. So the same kind of technology can be leveraged in order to be able to distinguish them, always obviously not 100%. And there's quite a bit of progress needed to do this kind of analysis on noisy text. So even if we arrive on, let's say, 5% of character error ratio, so 5 mistakes for 100 characters, we hope to get more, get less mistakes, so better quality. But let's say we arrive at 5%. This is a challenge for people working in NLP, which are used to doing natural language processing on clean text. Now, let's say we'll have a manuscript and arrive at some kind of very noisy transcription. We will then align this noisy transcription with known texts, be able to drag that into it, train a more specific model on the text, arrive at a better transcription, align it again with the known text, and perhaps be able to arrive at the full alignment, and then retrain a model. So it's a kind of bootstrapping process. That allows us then to arrive at very good accuracy without a huge amount of human intervention. That is the one that is the most costly and the most difficult to attain. We can then identify paraphrases and quotations from other texts, especially the Hebrew Bible, and construct an intertextuality graph, not only with the Hebrew Bible, but all against all, which will be absolutely crucial, and do the morphological lexical analysis. So this will be the basis for the public being able to query the transcriptions. Where do I encounter Yadid in the plural, followed by Yatsa in the plural, or Yetsu in this case. So we will arrive at an intertextuality graph, for example, like here, the Mishnah in the center with its rabbinic central parallels linked to it, or many of you may have seen the visualizations of this kind of material on Sfaya, here Talmud against the Bible, but you should understand that in this case, we are talking about an intertextuality graph on the manuscript level of all texts against all texts, meaning we'll be able to trace like the literary DNA of small phrases, and from there, on the one hand, do textual criticism and phylogenetics and reconstruct texts automatically, or that have been lost, as Avi has published, for example, with Michal Bar-Sher in a very bright article, but also follow the history of traditions of midrashic exegesis, from the Midrashim to Rashi to the anonymous collections, to be able, with the paleographical dating, to provenance them and to follow which one is attested more in this context or in this context between the Christian and the Muslim world. So this is pretty much like we know from Iceland's DNA analysis, where we can now go generations and generations back and reconstruct the full family tree. This should enable us to engage with Jewish literature and Jewish thought in an incredible scale, and future generations obviously also. So a very important part I already said is the paleography. So Judith, whom most of you know well, I hope, is perhaps the foremost paleographer today of Hebrew manuscripts, will hands-on with her team and manually categorize and provenance about 5,000 specimens. She already has constructed an interface doing this, which you can consult online, Hebrew Pal. And the main challenge on her side will be to go beyond the relatively broad classification scheme of the 6 scripts: Oriental, Yemenite, Sephardi, Byzantine, Italian, and Ashkenazi. So it's kind of sad not to be able to say with more precision whether a manuscript comes from England, France, or Germany, or Switzerland. So going down the granularity there in a much finer way will be one of the main challenges she wants to overcome here. Not only in the European side, obviously, but also on the Oriental side, so between Persia and Egypt, for example. And one of the case studies of the project will be a ping pong between her and Avi, who is also a very good liturgical scholar, where we will they will use the rubrics of the liturgical sidurim, of the sidurim and machzorim that have been written for a specific community usually, and so we have the possibility to use the textual information to locate them in time and place with the paleographical information, and both should inform each other, like in a Sudoku, enable us to get to a finer schema. And finally, Nachum's work will be a lot of an interaction with all of us, especially with Judith. So leverage her manual classification to be able to train neural networks to provenance and classify the other 25,000 manuscripts that Judith's team will not have the time to do manually, so that we can place them in time and place and style and mode, and say perhaps not only that this is Catalonia, but Catalonia 14th century first half, and that is a crucial point in the project, to learn also the features that Judith uses and try to leverage them for the computer to make the decisions of the computer human understandable, so that it's not a black box, but that the decisions of the computer can be explained, become explainable. That is absolutely crucial to us. So obviously, we want to be able to isolate and cluster letters. And so we go back to the maybe 2 billion glyphs, maybe 8 billion glyphs. What do we know? And then also to try to arrive at classifications on a very fine-grained level for allographs and evaluate their significance to date or to provenance a certain manuscript in this place on that time. I'll go over these slides a bit quicker so that there remains a bit of room for discussion so that I can learn from you. And you may ask some questions. So this is our list of case studies that we want to do. One of them will be dealing, I already mentioned, so the one, the sixth one here, the paleographical and textual analysis of the prayer books. And Haifa will develop this atlas and in order to be able to follow the migrations of specific midrashic traditions between the Christian and the Muslim world. We in Paris will try to develop a methodology to arrive at comparative textual fluidity in order to be able to distinguish between the fluidity of a text, whether it's stable or less stable and under which circumstances. So whether we are talking about Hechalot literature or Talmud, which are relatively fluid, or about Mishnah or Bible, which are very, very stable. So this will be one of the larger ones in our nest, and the other one with in very close collaboration with Chaim Lapin about the prehistory of texts and traditions in the rabbinic Talmudic corpus, how well we can reconstruct the sources that were the blocks, so the building blocks behind the corpora that we know today on a manuscript level, not just on the composition level. We hope to be able to analyze on a large, very large scale layout. And one case study for which I do not have a slide here might interest Michelle, especially, is on readers. So it's perhaps a bit similar to footsteps ideas, to be able to see which of the interlinear and marginal annotations end up in the main text of other manuscripts, and how well we can reconstruct collections that were in the hands of the same scribe that annotated a number of manuscripts, etc. The whole methodology shall serve as a blueprint for any other culture that is built on scribal works, whether it's in Sanskrit or in Mongolian or in Arabic, especially obviously Semitic languages, Syriac or Arabic or Ge'ez should be quite simple to profit from this, as our data and our algorithms will be published openly and freely. This, I think, will be the best starting positions for the others. Let me end here and remind the importance of my 3 other co-PIs and also Moshe Lavi from Haifa, and the central person with whom we are in contact at the National Library is obviously Tzafra Ziv. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. There's so much here. I mean, so many different pieces. While people are ruminating and thinking about their questions to ask, I'm going to take moderator's privilege to ask my question, which is, in thinking about the paleographical styles, you know that I am in the print era, but interested in manuscript annotation in the print era. And have you included printed typefaces in your corpus of paleographical scripts? So would the computer be able to identify print versus manuscript?
What I did not, thank you very much, excellent question. And what I did not mention here is a kind of side step we want to do in the first, I mean, from now on, or actually we're working on it, is to transcribe the digitized books.
Oh.
Especially, obviously, the ancient ones. So the relation between the typefaces and the scripts is interesting to us, but the same algorithms that work on the classification of hands obviously work also on the classification of fonts. Only that for the printed books we have much better provenance because we usually have a place of the press. So this becomes even easier in a sense. So we will need the transcribed digitized books a lot in the task for transcription alignment, where we'll try to kind of like a Hoover link the standard texts to the rough OCR with mistakes in the automatic transcriptions of the manuscripts, and then sort of which of these lines is actually usable. It's not too far from the manuscript, which one is pretty close to it, in order to self-learn, self-supervised learning, it's called, the computer to transcribe those. So we are very much looking forward to working with librarians that could help us in classifying the material, in classifying the fonts, in classifying the layout, in understanding we do not have, as of yet, a list of authors. We do not have a list of texts. We do have, obviously, the catalogs of the National Library, CTIV, and the print catalog, and are trying to mine it as much as possible. But one of the important things will be to arrive, and it's not easy to define author, as you all know well. It's not easy to define what is a different text, whether it's a copy or whether it's completely different work. The NLP will help us a lot, but it's a task that will be complex.
Thank you. And then a follow-up, while I encourage people to use the hand raise function to let us know if you have a question. But my follow-up is what about, and this applies in manuscripts as well, I think DigiPal was something that worked on images. And in print, something that is really a desiderata is printer's ornaments. So all the little flowers and circles and shapes that filled up a page and sometimes can help us identify the origins of fragments, of print fragments, for instance. All of those were distinctive to particular presses. And so being able to say, like, here's our collection of circular or of flower or of something like that would be very interesting as well. The visual rather than the textual. I think that might be out of scope for your project, but also something just putting on the table there.
It is very much inside the project with regard to manuscripts, but we are not going to deal with it on print. So if you want to deal with it on print, we'll be most happy to interact with you, and that would be most helpful for everybody. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. Any other questions? Any questions? Go ahead, David Chevy.
I'm more interested in the primitives, the morphology of the letter shapes. You said you were using a neural network. I'm not familiar with your system, Scriptorium, but when you get these optical character recognition, do you get features to delineate one letter from another letter? Or is it a black box and you just get whatever you get from the output of the system?
Very good question. So modern HDR, handwritten text recognition, or OCR, optical character recognition, works on the line level, not on the character level. So we feed the computer images of lines and their transcriptions in order to teach the computer to give us back line transcriptions of lines that have been segmented. But the system also gives us back approximate geometrical information about the position of the characters. On the character level, these positions are not very reliable, so they can be a couple of pixels off. So you can miss a couple of pixels on the right or left, and it's a stream of rectangles more than overlapping rectangles. So me as a paleographer, I'd always prefer overlapping rectangles polygons rather than one next to each other. But this is one of the research projects of the Tel Aviv team. So the Tel Aviv team will leverage what we already know now in order to get, on the one hand, on to the letter level, the sub-letter level, and on the other hand, to the combinations of levels, so n-grams, the combinations or ligatures, nexus, where you have 2 or 3 letter combinations where one letter in the shape or the ductus of one letter is crucially informs the second or third one.
So if you don't do individual letter geometrics, how are you going to do paleography?
We are doing.
But
so
how?
we get from the Kraken, which is inside Scriptorium, that gives you back the geometrical information for the approximate position of each letter.
Yes.
So we get to the letter level. It is not 100% precise. It is quite precise on the word level. So if you combine those together, it's very precise. But on the letter level, you can be a couple of pixels off, as I said, and it cuts the line into salami slices. So as soon as you have like an ayin, which usually is under the next letter, it's very hard to have these hard borders. The team in Tel Aviv will work from this information in order to get us nice polygons in order to be able to extract individual letters.
But when you extract the ayin, how will you tell if it's a Spanish ayin or a Yemenite ayin or an Ashkenazi ayin? You have to look at the individual letter characteristics, do you not?
So we have on the one hand a large paleographical specialist team around Judith Schlanger, who will do this manually. Yeah. So they will if you look at Hebrew Pal, that's what they're doing. They're drawing rectangles around individual letters.
Yes.
So you can distinguish between an Oriental Aleph or a Byzantine Aleph, an Italian Ein or a Spanish Ein. And this will be able to be used by the computational team in Tel Aviv to take the approximate geometrical information that comes from us to get to more precise bounding boxes around letters, whether it's Spanish or Italian or Ashkenazi.
I take it then that you can't have the computer tell you what society the letter came from because you're doing it by hand by the Oxford group.
No, we are doing it by hand and by the machine. So 5,000 manuscripts will be done by hand. So this will serve as what we are calling it ground truth. So this will be the teaching manual for the computer to the other 25,000. The categorization of the classification of scripts is actually something that the computer is extremely good at. And as anybody here around the table who is going to a radiologist for mammography knows, a lot of this work is done by computers today, and this classification for well-known items is working very well already.
Once it's trained properly. Han, I'm going to turn, what's your question? Go ahead.
I just had a question. You know, when we're studying, example, like Gemara, I'm studying Daf Yomi, we look when you say, there seems to be a girsa issue here. Like, what is the text that this commentator is working with? And we have a different text. And as you can tell from my question, this is what you're saying is not so much my area, but I'm curious, it sounds like your work could help with these kinds of problems that we have when we're studying. So I don't know if you could, if that
Back
would
to
help.
sort of the literary corpus question of where a printed text, like where in what in or text, and we know that the or text is a complicated term in the medieval period. But so perhaps we can identify where what becomes a canonical text comes from. Is that your question?
So
Once we have a text.
let me try to interpret Hannah's question.
Sorry,
so
thank you.
If the text you're studying quotes another text, then it will be very easy to find the other text in one of our manuscripts if it is extant. If it makes a comment about a text that it does not quote, which is obviously also a frequent situation, then it will be much, much, much more complicated, because then this creates a distance between the actual extant text on both ends by up to a semantic level. And you first have to understand what question the Gemara is asking, or the commentary to the Gemara is asking, to what types of varilectiones in one of the Geniza manuscripts this could refer to. So if the text is quoted, or if it is at least paraphrased, this is one level of difficulty. If the text is not quoted or paraphrased, but only alluded to, that's very difficult. So, but I mean, there has been so much progress in the last 10 years. And if you only, some of you may have played with ChatGPT. I asked it some questions about Qumran and rabbinics, and it's so superficial. It's so superficial. I mean, sometimes it gives you back really, really stupid answers, but it's a huge progress nevertheless. We were not able to segment interlinear and marginal annotations like we do today 5 years ago. The progress in only 5 years has been so incredibly fast that also on the NLP, on the language size, the progress has been so fast in the last 5 years, which obviously is dependent on data. But here we are going to produce data. So we are going to have exactly the type of material that we need in order to improve these algorithms. And the special thing is that we are going to have the data linked to geographical information, to chronological information, and to the image. So this is not some kind of abstract text. This is obviously digital items are very abstract compared to the physical items in the library. But still, these are data points that, like in an archaeological excavation, have much more context, because they are linked to the actual place on the object they are in. Geometrical wise, page wise, as I said, in a number of circumstances, we will be able to identify scribes, and we will be able to locate them in time and place. Not only for the main scribe, also for the nice commentaries on the side. But your question is right to the point. If the text is not quoted, but only alluded to, then that will be really tough. That's a huge distance.
Thank you. Any other questions? I know that there's a broad variety of people in the room who have different levels of knowledge of digital concepts and things like that. So please, if there's something that wasn't clear that you want explained, feel free to ask. Nobody's very few people in the room. I would say one person in the room understands fully Daniel's project, and that's Daniel. So feel free to ask any questions, really.
Yes, please do. I mean, if there's any term I used or any concept I used, this is exactly the right forum to share.
Yeah, Constanza.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Sorry, I had to open my computer for the video. But anyway, I have not a question about digital things, although I'm not sure that I understood everything, but I have to think about these many concepts. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think a project like this means for doing editions of texts or synopsis of text, like, you know, critical editions or synopsis of text? It is usually collating manuscripts is incredible work, and as far as I understand, if this project goes ahead, there is much less human work involved.
Okay, excellent question. As all questions until now, I've myself been working with Chaim and others on editions of the Tannaitic compositions. And yes, we can arrive at quite precise synopsis with computational means, but the computer still does mistakes, and it needs considerable amount of time to get corrected. There it depends then on the type of interfaces one has in order to be fast and reliable, and on the data structure, because obviously you can imagine, especially if one talks about texts that are transmitted not only in a single language, but in two languages or three languages, that but also even only in Hebrew, you can have a single to multi-word correspondence. And you can talk about, in synopsis, you can talk about different granularities. You can talk about things like Peter Schäfer's synopsis of the Hechalot on a paragraph level, or you can talk about synopsis like the dicta tools provide on the word level, or even on the sub-word level. So producing synopsis on a paragraph level is very easy with the current status of affairs with the dicta tools. If you want to go down to the word level, this needs quite a number of hours to get humanly corrected. If the texts are as stable as the Tannaitic compositions, if they are as fluid as some of the Midrashim or the Hechalot, then this is still something to be solved. So if the text has to be understood in order to know what is parallel to what, then this is less easy. There are a couple of teams working on that. For example, there's also a very interesting project in Halle. But there are lots of other projects going to this direction, and I'm sure that less human effort will be needed in the future for this kind of work, and more can be used for deeper understanding, asking more intellectually and enticing questions than rather aligning blocks of texts.
Thank you so much. I mean, for me, it was just imagining, for example, Sefer Yetzirah with all the versions you have.
I'm sorry?
Sefer Yetzirah with all the versions you have. This is here you need I think, or as far as I understand what you said, you need a human brain, and this. But I think for me it's consoling that it is not possible to do this all automatically.
Indeed. But you can imagine that the creative algorithms like ChatGPT that are able to, you are able to say to it, please write me a sonnet about my next assignment for my physics class, or please write it to me as an article in the New York Times, or please write it as a diary entry, that the similar techniques can be used in order to be able to classify and to calculate the proximity between texts that talk about similar subjects, so topic modeling, in order to use the terminus technicus, just the other way around. So not generative, but analytical.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Your project is wonderful. Thank you.
And I think, just thinking about corpora that exist already, the Sefer Hasidim project has all of those manuscripts at least cited in one place. And then, throwing a computer at it, at their OCR text could be very interesting.
Yes, and the more data that will be at our disposal in order to train algorithms, obviously will improve the results.
Yeah.
So we will get a lot of projects have agreed to share data with us. If you know of any that would be willing, we are all ears, because the results that then can be used by anybody that is interested in now Jewish studies, but later on maybe Ge'ez or Syriac or Arabic, will be better.
Are you already ready to be interested in those kinds of projects? I mean, I'm thinking immediately of the Muslim World Manuscripts Project, which has digitized thousands. I mean, we have about 700, so it must be over 1,000 Islamic manuscripts.
So we are actively collaborating with the Mellon-funded project, which is called OpenITI, which is run at the University of Maryland, is one of the co-PIs, and the other one is at Northeastern, David Smith and Matt Miller. So we're closely collaborating with them. They're using Scriptorium to train segmentation and especially transcription models. And currently we leave all this to them, as they're absolutely excellent, lovely partners, and very much to the point. And for anything in Arabic script, so Matt is more in Persian.
Yeah.
So America is in good hands on that side.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Any last questions? We have time for maybe one more. Okay. If not, I'm gonna thank you, Daniel Stoekl, ben-Ezra, so much for joining us. This has been incredibly enlightening. We're looking forward to see what comes out of this project, in the first year, in the fifth year, and maybe we'll see you at the AJL conference next summer, presenting on your work.
Yes, we will have a roundtable down there.
Okay, that's excellent. Very glad to hear. All right, so thank you all for joining us, and a recording will be made available probably within a week or so. And thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.